Dejan Kulusevski. 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 You get the point. I said on X, I was just going to do an hour straight of saying Dejan Kulusevski, and it feels warranted. We needed that. Didn't we need that? We needed that. We did. We definitely did. That Brighton game before. Do you know what? That Brighton game, I've got to admit, it rattled me a little bit. It gave me that little pause for thought of like, have we only beaten like Dross? Is that the first time we've played against somebody decent and come unstuck? And then having a whole international break to sort of think about that, to mull on that, is unpleasant, to say the least. I think we're all in that same position. But West Ham, I think they're a decent side. I know this is probably going to be one of those things that feels like, yeah, you're going to say that to sort of bolster up our own win, but I think they played well today. I think they're a decent side. I think they're well organised. I know Lopetegui is going to be getting a lot of kind of flack, but I thought they were defensively quite well organised. Dare I say we got a little fortuitous with a couple of the goals. Not complaining about that for a second. Don't care how we get and where they come from. We were the better team overall, so I'm not taking away from Spurs' performance. My point is that any of those fears that I had about us coming unstuck because we played against Brighton, a so-called sort of not so-called, they are a good team. They're a very good side. I think West Ham are also a good side, and we pummeled them today. We absolutely pummeled them, and I front-ended this pod by just saying Dejan Kulusevski over and over again, but my word, that boy is the driving force. He's the beating heart of this team. He's the absolute beating heart of this team. Seeing him move inside and basically, look, I don't think, what is it? You know, you don't need to push somebody else down to lift somebody else up, but I think it's appropriate, and I think it's relevant to mention the fact that since he's moved inside, it's really shown you quite how poor James Maddison's been for a while. And I saw there was some like graph chart thing showing basically how effective the Premier League's midfielders had been, and Kulusevski was right up in the highest percentile of this. He was like, statistically, by what they were doing, I think it was like most progressive passes. I think it was an axis that was showing the amount of progressive passes created and the success of those progressive passes. And Kulusevski was like right up in that the highest sort of quadrant of it. And James Maddison actually wasn't that far behind. So it did give me pause for thought to think maybe my sort of internal monologue on Maddison has been a bit harsh, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what's happened to the fella. From the lad that we signed who looked unbelievable at the start of Ange's tenure, but there's something missing there at the moment. I think on a physical level, Kulusevski is so much more imposing. He can really get in and really battle with opposition teams in that midfield in a way that I think James Maddison can't. But then in a kind of in an attacking sense, I think he's got just as much to his game as Maddison does. Maybe not quite. I don't think he's quite perfected that. When Maddison gets it right, and he did one today, because I'm not going to completely slate Maddison today, because I don't actually think Maddison was bad. I just think he wasn't very effective today. Maddison did one of those lovely dinked sort of cross come sort of over the top through balls to Solanke, I think, and Solanke couldn't quite get on the end of it. I don't think Decky's quite got that in his locker, but still, he doesn't stop running. His passing is brilliant. It is progressive. Always exploits space, whether that's him moving into that space or passing the ball into that space for somebody else to do what they can do with it. But I think the fella is unbelievable. I think he's honestly speaking, I think he's one of the best players on form, one of the best players in the Premier League at the moment, Dejan Kulusevski. And he was when he first started playing for us. I mean, he had 2 games where he was a bit whiffy, and then he broke through in that spell under Conte where we clinched Champions League ahead of Arsenal. Kulusevski was absolutely instrumental in that. And we've had this awkward period of him finding out his place in Ange Postecoglou's system, and it's led a lot of people to question. I'm not doing a told you so or anything like that, but it has led a lot of people, and I understand it, to question what his place was within this Ange Postecoglou team. And I understood that when he was stuck out on the wings. The kind of feeling was he's not quick enough. He's not maybe sort of physically dynamic enough in that respect to be an explosive winger. And that's really what he needs to have in Ange Postecoglou's system. And it led a lot of people to be like, well, maybe we should sell him. Maybe we should cash in on him now. And I will say that, I will take as much as, and I hold my hands up when I get it wrong, but I'm going to claim it when I get it right. I've always said, hold on to him. He's so brilliant. He's such a class player. He's brilliant. Like, we've got to make it happen. By hook or by crook, we have to make it happen with Kulusevski because he's young. He's like the same age as Foden. I think I want to say he's younger. Is he younger than Saka? But they're all about the same age. Saka, Foden, Kulusevski, they're all about the same age. And people can think it's ridiculous, but I don't think he is. I think he belongs alongside those 2 players that I've named there in terms of his quality, in terms of his brilliance. Plenty of the clips coming out of the international break now for Sweden, it feels like he's absolutely taking the sort of the Swedish national team on his back now as well, and becoming like the real star for them too, as he is for Spurs. He for large parts of that first half, he carried the team, absolutely carried us. And I'm just so pleased that he started to get that chance to play in this. I guess it is a kind of number 8 - number 10 sort of role, right? It depends who's on the pitch at what time. And we have to talk about what happened in the second half with Maddison going off, with Sarr coming on, with Kulusevski playing in that more progressive role. It did change his place in the team. I thought he did go into more of that number 10 role in the second half. But that first half, number 8, he was just running the show. He was so influential. Everything, like I say, like everything went through him. His passings was great. His movement's great. His positioning's great. His physicality on the ball is brilliant. He just gives us such a presence in that midfield. He's such a unique talent. And I think it gets less and less a joke. I honestly do. I think it gets less and less a joke calling him a ginger Dembele, because that really feels like what he is. When I'm watching Mr. Dembele, when he dropped back from, because if you remember, for anyone that's too young to remember anyway, and for anyone my sort of age, if you remember, Mr. Dembele, when we signed him, was basically a striker. He was sort of an attacking midfielder / striker for Fulham, and we tried to sort of play him in that role. It didn't really ever work out for him. And a few people, myself included, I think on this very podcast at some point down the line, and Raj loves to bring this one up even to this day, he will give me a sporadic reminder on WhatsApp that I once said that I wouldn't even care if we released Mr. Dembele on a free transfer. But then when Dembele settled more into that sort of central midfield role, playing in that sort of, he played what we always call it, the double pivot with Wanyama and everything like that. But when he played in that central midfield role, he just orchestrated everything. And he kind of became like a sort of, a strong Modric. Modric in his Tottenham days. I know Modric, who has gone on to Real Madrid, become this legendary player, has gone on levels. But talking about his function at Tottenham and what he did there, And that's kind of what Moussa Dembele became. And that's essentially what Dejan Kulusevski is becoming now for us. He's looking he's looking like a Kevin De Bruyne regen at the moment. He's just the lad is unbelievable. He's unbelievable. And today was another example of that. And I know I do the players in the second half, but I really want to make space to just talk about them up front because I'm excited about them and I'm happy about them. Pape Matar Sarr, another player. And look, I'm going to pat myself on the back because I've been getting loads of pelters this season. Loads of pelters from people saying you're negative, you're this, you're that, all these type of things, right? There's plenty of these players that Pape Matar Sarr is another one, right, that has been written off by vast, vast swathes of this fan base. And it's not just that people will want to say, oh, it's just purple and gold people. It hasn't been just that. There's been plenty of like the stats aficionado types that have said that Pape Matar Sarr actually isn't very good. He's 22 years old. From the second he started playing for us, he came in against AC Milan under Antonio Conte, looked unbelievable, played away at the San Siro, looked fantastic, looked rough, but looked fantastic, right? He kills it on international duty. And ever since he's become pretty much a first team semi-regular for us, I feel like the team has always looked like it's missing something whenever he's not playing for us. And I think that midfield, it's going to be tough. It's going to be painful to drop James Maddison. But I think that's a clear statement from Ange Postecoglou. And I said that on Twitter, and I've had somebody say, it's not a statement, it's just a tactical thing. To me, it's a statement. To take off a player, let's be honest, one of our main players, James Maddison, at half-time, when he's not injured, he wasn't happy about it. You could see he was sat there sulking on the subs bench. He wasn't happy about it. But to take him off and to bring Pape Matar Sarr on is a statement, in my opinion. Like, to then be playing the midfield that, you know, certain people have called for. Bankrupt Spurs did a joke about it on Twitter a while back. You know, the guy sat there with the mug of coffee with the sign saying change my mind or whatever it is, you know, the thing. This is like your fucking Dar explaining memes, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I saw this thing on eBay. Is it eBay? Is that what it is? Or is it Face Chat? Or what are them things? I don't know. There's a picture of a fellow with a cuppa and he's saying about this. You know what I'm saying? Having Basuma as the anchor, Sarr as the, you know, whatever it is, the box-to-box player, and having Kulusevski as somebody who is a kind of, I'm going to say a progressive 8, because I don't think he's quite a number 10, right? As that kind of progressive number 8, playing between the two is, it. West Ham looked very, very hard to break down in that first half, and they just had no answer to what we brought to them in the second half. Ange isn't one to react. We know this. He's not one to make reactive substitutions. Again, this is why I call this quite a statement move at halftime to take James Maddison out of the fold and put Pape Matar Sarr in there. And Pape Matar Sarr, to continue going on about him, is a player that he doesn't stop running ever. Like, he doesn't stop running. He's got such an engine on him. He's such a brave and tenacious player. The thing is, because he's so baby-faced, I think people just overlook the fact he's so brave. He's always running back, providing an option for that midfield to pass. He does what Pierre, and look, and you knew there was going to be a way for me to bring him up even after we sold him. But what Pierre-Emile Højbjerg never did. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, great. His function would be good. Games like today, we're 3-1 up. Bring Pierre-Emile Højbjerg on and he can run around in the midfield and kick people, break up play. And that's a good function for him because that's what he was. He was a fairly limited player. And what he was limited at, he did quite well, right? That's what he did quite well. What he never did, though, is when we wanted to be proactive, when we wanted to take a game to the opposition, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg would always hide. He would always hide. He'd never be there for the defense. He'd never go up. He'd never drop back to support them in a meaningful fashion. He'd always hang on an attacker and act like he was doing something meaningful. What Pape Matar Sarr does is he's brave. He's there. He moves into space. He uses that space well around the defense and he looks to receive a pass. He looks to receive a pass and to progress the ball up the field. and get it moving up there for someone like Kulusevski, or to play it out to the wings. And he does that, and he does that successfully pretty much every single time he's on the pitch. And yeah, he has the odd off game where he's less than brilliant. He's 22 years old. He's learning on the job for a lot of it. And I don't want to sort of, diminish kind of his career to this date or anything like that. But my point is that he's a young player. Of course, there's always going to be an element of learning on the job with a young player. And he got thrown in the most difficult circumstances at the start of his Tottenham career. And I think he's gone from strength to strength. And I feel like we always look like a worse team for not having Pape Matar in the team. I think he's simply brilliant. And it's a delight to see the likes of him and Kulusevski linking up in the way they have. And this isn't to say that this is going to happen every single game, but this is still something that this to me is an idea of like what Spurs can be looking at for the next few years. Then you start adding in an Archie Gray or somebody like that. If Basuma doesn't quite kind of kick on, although I think Basuma's a brilliant player as well. I think Basuma is a quietly very underrated player. But look, moving away from players on an individual basis, I think we have to give it to Ange Postecoglou, first and foremost. There were complaints about him in Brighton, looking at kind of the way Doggy was consistently targeted and he didn't make any changes or anything like that. He clearly saw that it just wasn't happening in this first half, and he changed it. That's generally, seemingly, from what we understand, against his kind of principles. He likes to try and play through these periods. He was saying sort of the other week that, his weird sort of cryptic garbled thing about substitutions and stuff. But I feel like that's something of a climb down for a manager like Ange, and I'm glad that he's not too proud to do that type of thing, because it wasn't working in that first half. You can say, I saw some people say, we were the miles better team. We were and we weren't. I think we had probably more possession than West Ham, and this is kind of a consistent theme with a lot of what Tottenham do. Felt like we had more possession than them, but did we have more meaningful possession than West Ham? I don't think I can hand on heart say that we did. I feel like West Ham carved out the best opportunities in the first half for the most part and looked good for their goal. And to be fair, 1-1 was a fair result. I think 1-1 was a fair result to be going in at half time. But it was night and day. The second half, it was such a stark contrast, an absolute stark contrast in how much control we had over that game, how many opportunities we were carving out consistently. We just looked like a far better, far greater functioning team than we were in that first half. And it really predominantly comes down to that substitution. Comes down to that substitution of not having Maddison and Kulusevski, of being two sort of players who operate in a fairly similar fashion. And I think that in games, what I will say is I think that in games that are a bit more open, as we've seen at some points in this season, maybe teams that try to play at us or who just simply aren't quite as organised as I think West Ham were, sometimes having Kulusevski and Maddison together is quite nice. I think they sort of bounce the ball off of each other quite nicely and everything. But it felt like at points today they were, I don't want to say getting in each other's way because I don't think that's right, but it just felt like Maddison was a luxury today that we didn't need. It felt like we needed somebody more in the trenches today, and Pape Matar can do that. He can do that type of work that I think James Maddison tries to do. I think he tries to drop back and then leads to sort of some of us getting quite annoyed with him for doing that. But I think Pape Matar just does it to another level entirely, and it was brilliant. And so give Ange his dues on that. He changed the game with that substitution, and brilliant. And I think we have to give it to the players as well. We have to give it to the players for having the strength of spirit, enough heart. A lot of people were talking about them being gutless and all this type of thing after Brighton. I didn't buy that. I didn't think, look, we've seen the kind of the Dynamo Zagreb games and stuff like that, which have been gutless performances from Tottenham Hotspur in recent history. I didn't see the Brighton game as like a gutless performance, as one of these where the players didn't fancy it and they were cowards and all this. I didn't see that. I saw that as just a group of young, fairly inexperienced players that got I don't want to say got taken advantage of. That, do you know what I mean? That's got like a weird connotation to it, but that's think of another way of putting that. Essentially, I'm on the spot here. Um, fucking hell. Um, just I think Brighton just they got the better of us, and I think today the players look like they're you know they weren't gonna their heads didn't drop. They weren't 1-0 down, and yeah, maybe we were lucky from the fact that West Ham went 1-0 up relatively early into the game, but West Ham still they went 1-0 up, and then they sat back, didn't they? They had that solid bank of five there. Tobido, who we'd been heavily linked with, like he's had a mare. He scored that own goal, and I think Sonny did him, didn't he, for his goal as well. But for the most part, I thought he was actually a very good player today. A bit of a rock at the heart. And it sounds so weird to say because they conceded 4 goals, but for what it's worth, I thought he was a rock at the heart of a pretty organised West Ham defence. It's one of those things, isn't it? It was organised until they weren't, and that's to our credit as it is as much to their kind of I don't know poor playing. But I don't care. I'm not here to talk about what West Ham have done. Look, it's been great. Look, those lads, they've not let their heads drop. They've fought back. They've beaten West Ham 4-1. This is a big. Don't forget everything as well. Brighton and everything aside, this is a big derby that has grown over the years. And it had. Look, we can say all we want. Oh, I don't care about West Ham. We do. We care more now. Well, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but I feel that the Tottenham fan base cares a lot more about West Ham now than they have done for many, many years. And that's quite simply because West Ham are a much better team now. They are. There's more and more money going into there. They've got a big stadium. They're growing again, a global kind of platform. They're not the sort of West Ham of the early Premier League era that would yo-yo up and down from the Championship back into the Premier League and be, a bottom half team. West Ham are a decent enough side now. West Ham are a decent enough side that, of course, does considerable pain over the past few years. There's been plenty of big games in which they've popped up and caused us hurt. And, the first team to beat us at the new stadium, the bloody Leicester year, beating us at the London stadium, all these sorts of games, Lanzini in the bloody pandemic, that came up on my timeline the other day. There's plenty of examples of West Ham doing the dirty on us in recent years, and so I think the rivalry has grown stronger. And we know this. We always say it's their cup final, but they always up their game against us. It's always a difficult game against them, and you can be sure as fuck if we'd have lost today, we would have said, "Why don't we ever turn? This is their cup final. Why do they always bring this to us?" And we never got an answer for it. It's typical. We're just such cowards. We haven't got the bottle for it, and they do. And we say what you want about them, but they turn up in this fixture, and they did today. They tried their best, and we turned up, and it was clear. It felt like the narrative around this game, from what Ange was saying beforehand, and just from the way the early stages of this game went, is it was made clear to these boys that this is a big game for Tottenham now. Sorry if my throat starts going. I should say that I do actually have COVID at the moment as well. It's the second time I've had it, and it's not first time I had COVID. It absolutely sparked me out. This time it felt kind of like a bit of a cold. I'm still, I don't want to go into all the politics of COVID and everything. I'm choosing to isolate. I'm not going out subjecting anyone else to it. That's my decision. There you go. End of. But I've got COVID. And it hasn't felt as bad this time, but my throat will start going a little bit, as it is now. But it's a big game for West Ham, big game for us, and we've done them. And, what more can you want from them, right? And again, this is the kind of thing, this is what I was saying after Manchester United, like, what I'm happy to do this season, because it's not going to be like this forever. I do think there comes a time when you've got to say, like, Spurs, our aspiration, if it is to win stuff, this kind of the up down form that we do have under Ange a little bit, I don't think, he's got an unlimited kind of slack in which to do that. But this season, if we can sort of steady the ship a bit more than it was last year, I'm happy to just have good days like today, days like Manchester United, where we don't really need to have to always think about the big context of the season. What does this mean for Ange's tenure? What does this mean for the rest of the season? Are we going to finish in the top four? I'm still kind of happy to be in a place after, let's be honest, right? I was thinking about this. 2025 coming up, right? It's 2024 till it's 2025, but it's 2025 coming up soon. That's going to be 6 years now. Hang on. Yeah. My maths isn't always my strongest point. 6 years, 6 years since Champions League final, when it last felt properly good to be Tottenham, right? And even that was a pretty catastrophe of a domestic season. But still, I mean, we still finished in the top four, to be fair. So catastrophes way OTT me. But it's been 6 years since Champions League final. And to be honest, for most of those 6 years, it's not been fun. It's not been fun watching Tottenham. It's not been fun supporting Tottenham. And I would say, like, in pockets under Postecoglou, it's been fun again. And days like today are fun. And I just want to focus on this being a great game. I was saying on the Patreon, patreon.com/RTRpod, pre-match preview of this one, I was saying there's a part of me that feels like it's not a Spurs thing. It feels like a top flight football thing. The halftime team talks that they want to televise next year and interviews with subs coming off the pitch and all of it. It's all just the whole sports feeling quite WWE. It feels like I'm sort of falling out of love with the game a little bit and all this type, at least at the very top level. But days like today are just like, it's just fun. It's just fun. And it's nice to detach yourself from the narratives of football. Like I say, what's the implication? What does this mean? Well, it doesn't matter. We lost to Brighton. I don't care. West Ham have come here, probably cocky, waiting, eager to sing it's happened again. It's happened again. And we've slapped them about. They've all been walking out the stadium 65, 70 minutes into this game. Cheerio, 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 right? Miserable afternoon for them. I just want to enjoy that. I just want to enjoy Tottenham games in isolation again. And that's, I think, even as a supporter base, we can talk about what Ange Postecoglou is doing in terms of instilling a mentality into the players and everything like that. I think as a supporter base, we need to look for our own foundations. We need to look for our own building blocks of falling back in love with the sport at large. And things like this, just remembering that sometimes it's fine to just enjoy a match in isolation and not have to worry about what the bigger picture is sometimes great. And days like today, days like Manchester United away at Old Trafford, that's great. And let's just enjoy that. Like I say, maybe next year it will be a bit more like, what are we doing here? Are we going to... But for now, maybe we'll win a Europa League this year. I really sort of feel like we will. But let's see what a few people are saying here. Jordan Emmett says, let's go. Barry McConnell says, start talking, slag, and then says, sorry. That was probably at the very start of my stream. If you're going back to this, my Hoover was in the background, and I thought, I can't be having that. Can't be having that. I'll break this facade of consummate professionalism if there's a Hoover in the background. I mean, one of Charlotte's handbags is there as well right now, but that's all right. John Benfield, hello mate. He says we needed that. Yep, we did. Jordan Emmett says Decky is about to subscribe to the Inner Sanctum. I hope he does. That'd be nice. Hacker BL CPS says his name was Dejan Kulusevski. I do agree with that. John Benfield as well again says maybe Ange does change games with subs. Yep. Richie Coyssssss says bad result for the 52%. Don't know what you mean, mate. Somebody else will have to explain that one to me. Demenstres says we've still only beaten Dross, to be fair. I'll take that just as a little nip at West Ham. I'll let you have that one, mate. Beat play, lovely win. Hope your COVID recovery is okay, mate. Thank you very much, mate. Lovely win indeed. Benedict Fox, Dejan is worth every mention. Crazy how he has taken the responsibility. There's so much to admire. yeah, couldn't agree further, mate. Callum THFC, Kulusevski, yeah, we'll have that. Zeros and ones. Lopetegui is their AVB. Could be, mate. Could be. John Benford also says, I, for one, would like to know who else has put Brennan Johnson in their FPL team and contributed to breaking his streak. Yeah. Paul King, hello, mate. Ange gets a bit of flack for subs, whether lack of or too late. It's a very bold call taking off Maddison for Sarr at half time. Massive call, masterstroke. Agreed, mate. Agreed. Wilson T, big up, Jack. Enjoyed that. Ange played a blinder with tweaks in midfield at half time. Yes, he did, mate. Agreed. Let's have a look what else we've got in here. Benedict Fox, and you need to give a special mention to Sonny. Wasn't as sharp in the first half, but was perfect in the second half. Hockey assist, goal, and cause to the own goal. Better than Werner, I think. Yeah. I was going to get onto Sonny, but he definitely, he probably deserves more of it. Mentioned lovely goal as well. Proper vintage Sonny, that. Welcome in pieces. It's shoulda, woulda, couldas, but Leicester 2 points, Newcastle 3, Brighton 3 would have put us top today. These should have all been wins. If we can find a way to not be us, then we're on a good path. Yeah, I know what you're saying about shoulda, woulda, couldas, and I think you're saying this in a positive respect, and I agree with you. In that, look, there's things that we need to learn from, and my point was on Brighton is that we are a young side. There's a lot of inexperienced players in this team, and they are going to learn from all of these. Hopefully, I mean, I back them too because I think there's a lot of talent in this squad, and they are going to learn from these. And let's hope that they do. I mean, we can't say for definite that they will, but we got to hope that they do. And days like today really makes you feel that they are, because as I was saying before, like, this is a big game. It is a big game. We went 1-0 down. We fought back, and we absolutely dominated them in that second half. Absolutely bossed them. And yeah, feels like we are on a good path. It feels like, do you know what? What I will say in terms of those shoulda, woulda, couldas. What I will say, I'll put my neck out there. I think we need one more like wow player. I think we need somebody. Nico Williams, for example. I know that's the name I keep saying, but that's the type. Like, I think we need somebody with this, just the X factor, if you like, that can make the difference in those games. A Gareth Bale, and look, Gareth Bale wasn't always Gareth Bale, but he could win as a game there. And we all, myself included, we all hated it when people called us a one-man team under Gareth Bale. But I think in our quieter moments, we were like, oh, no, one-man teams may be harsh, but if we're to sort of, introspect on this, so you get what I'm saying. But I think that the experience of this team is going to grow. And those, as you say, because that is quite mad what you say there, mate. Had we beaten Leicester, Newcastle and Brighton, 3 games that we could have won. Newcastle maybe more questionable, but Brighton and Leicester definitely. Those were kind of like defeats and a draw snatched from the hands of victory, isn't it? And all that type of thing. But I do think in those type of games, having just that sort of star player, and I don't want to do Sonny dirty, but he is getting older. He is aging. I don't think James Maddison is quite providing that. I've got to say, honestly, I think that's maybe what we signed him to be, and I just don't think he's doing that. I just don't think he is. So I think that's maybe what we need as well to make. If we want to start talking about, being top of the table, we want to talk about kind of meaningful conversations about Tottenham's place at the top of the table, with a view to doing. Look at Arsenal now, with a view to us being similar to Arsenal. Can we be the team that's knocking on Manchester City's door to try and challenge them for that? I think we need another like superstar. I think that's it's a player we maybe need to drop a chunk of money on, and the board, the people that run the club, need to be brave. And look, we can have this back and forth, and I don't think today is the time and the place, but we can have the back and forth about buying players like Archie Gray, buying players like Lucas Bivol, who I think are both fine players, and I think that's great. I think it's great to build a squad, but I think we also, on top of that, need to be investing in top level players for the here and now, which I don't think we do quite as much. I think we can honestly say that, and I think that is the difference right now between Spurs being really, really good, really promising team and being one of the best teams in the country. As our form hints that we can potentially be, as our form and the way we play hints that we could be if we maybe had a couple more difference makers. And I hope, you know, we'll get to see that. But today is not a day for that. Like I say, today is a day for enjoying a victory over West Ham United. Let's see. STZ says, without Maddison, it meant Udogie took more of those positions he usually would, which led to the Biss goal. That's an interesting observation there, mate. Not one I had made, but I'll take your word for it, and I'll keep an eye out for that next time we don't play James Maddison, because that is interesting, because Udogie did look much better today. Phil Mayo, our most complete match yet. You can see where it's going. West Ham were never in that match once Biss started stepping up to Kudus and driving him. And Kudus was absolutely rattled, completely lost his head. What was he doing? Like Ali McCoy, I was having a rant about Ali McCoy, and I'll do it here, actually. I'll do it here. Ali McCoy, right? Kudus has not only been kicking one of our players when they're on the floor. I think it was Kulusevski. He was kicking him on the ground. And then it was Van der Ven, wasn't it? He was kicking Van der Ven while he was on the ground. And he's got up, pushed Richarlison down by the face, and then pushed Sarr by the face. Sarr, who, again, like I say, just because he's babyface doesn't mean he's not brave, just took it and was standing there like, what? What are you doing, mate? What are you doing? Like, didn't go down clutching his face, none of that stuff. So Kudus has been absolutely rattled. Kudus, I have to say, I hate to say it, is a spectacular player. He's a brilliant, brilliant player. I think he would be absolutely lovely for us in this system, I have to say. But today, he absolutely lost his arse. And that's because, like you say, he basically wasn't given any time and space to do what he wanted to do in that second half. And Basuma was a huge part of that. He was brilliant. Matt Gert says, good performance, enjoyable. Well done. Phil Mayer, well said, Jack. Much needed reminder we can just love our club and that's okay. Yeah, I'm guessing you're saying that of the like, let's just enjoy things in isolation. I hope so, mate, because, I agree. Julian Big, hello, mate. Been a while, I haven't spoken to you for a bit. Kulu is going to become integral to this team making strides forward. Honestly, mate, I think he already is. I think the ship of going to become has sailed. I think we're now on has become island, is what I would say. Just to use your nautical metaphor there. What I did want to moan about, I said I was going to rant about Ali McCoy. Ali McCoy, right? Not only every time Arsenal are playing, just absolutely, I'm going to be crass, absolutely rims them. Like, he cannot get enough of Arsenal. And I know this sounds like the tinfoil kind of Spurs fan thing. Oh, this other person loves Arsenal or whatever. But he does. He cannot get enough of Arteta's Arsenal. Absolutely loves them. Today was going on about the fact, the boys, when they were bringing up the VAR for Kudus, they were like, the boys had a yellow card. The boys had a yellow card. Leave him at that. Leave him at that. Let's get on with the game. I just think, and then they were watching the replays back, and you can see him literally palming Sarr in the face with two of his hands. And what's his name? Was it Mattaface doing the other side of whoever it was? The other one doing the other side of the commentary was saying, no, it's Fletch, wasn't it? Fletch was saying, well, I don't think you can do that. Don't think you can do that, Ali. And Ali McCoy was doing this whole, in my day. What do you mean in your day? You're playing in the 90s, mate. You're playing in the 90s. I vividly remember 90s football. And if players laid hands on each other's faces in the 90s, they'd get sent off. I'm pretty sure for all this, in my day stuff, which generally is a default kind of thing of saying in the 1970s when football was played by men who actually had testicles, not like today's day where they're all like these woke eunuchs. Um, but I'm pretty sure in the 70s you'd get a red card for slapping someone around the face on a football pitch as well. It's just nonsense. It's this nonsense, toxic gammon rhetoric that we always have to swallow from these commentators. It just, I don't know, just have an objection to Spurs or whoever it is at that point getting a red card. It's absolute nonsense, mate. It's absolute nonsense. Like, you played in the 1990s, and also, Ali, like, he wasn't this he wasn't a hard man player either. All right, he plays in some spicy old firm derbies, I'm sure, right? He's used to all that, but come on, man. Like, Ali McCoist, you've been this smiley, happy fella on Question of Sport for the past couple of decades, like acting like you're some hard man. Give over, mate. Give over. What a load of absolute nonsense. Like, in my day, we'd have just done that and gone with it. No, you wouldn't, mate. Like, you were playing in 1996. Like, like you were playing in a time when people were then saying the game's gone. Oh, this Premier League lark, this new fandangled Sky Sports football game's gone. It has. Like, come off it, man. Come off it. Absolute nonsense. Kudus was absolute. Kudus got literally. He could have had 2 or 3 red cards in that passage of play. That he absolutely lost his mind. And the fact you've got somebody paid to talk about football, a professional like Ali McCoist, sat there on national television going on about it like it's some travesty that he's gotten a red card. Fuck off. Like, absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Oh dear. Right. What have we got here? Well, We Come in Pieces says, I'd hope we do what Liverpool do. Allison and Van der Vaart, Arsenal with Rice. And we go and get Williams or now look, I can never pronounce his name. Vartas Skella, the lad at Napoli. Is that an all right pronunciation? Maybe. I mean, I'd love that, but I don't know. Just someone with a bit of star factor. Osimhen. I mean, probably not. With now we got Solanke in there, but you know, should I do the? I think I've been rabbiting on enough now. I'm going to do the players. So Julian Vicario. Again, the narrative at the top of this one was, I think it was Les Ferdinand and Glenn Oddle in the studio going on about, he's a bit weak. That keep again. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy all this. Like, I've seen some Spurs fans calling him spaghetti arms and all that type of thing, which is somewhat xenophobic, one might say. But also, like, it's just, I just don't think it's true. I think Vicario is a very good goalkeeper. I think that is one of those like panics about something that is so low down on our list of priorities. And it's weird. Again, I've moaned about this before, but it's in that template fashion of people saying, well, Arsenal had Ramsdale and then they had to get rid of him to get Raya in, and maybe that's what Vicario will be. We're a completely different football team to Arsenal. Our journey and what we're doing is completely separate from what they're doing. Like, they are not the template. It's not, this is the bit when we replace our goalkeeper because that's what they did. Like, I don't know. It's just this weird sort of, maybe it's like a herd mentality thing. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. Look at me, so out here, Sigma. Yeah, I don't know. I think Vicario is great. Made a number of very good saves today, I thought, but wasn't actually really tested at all in the second half. But still, when he was tested, I thought he made some good saves. I don't really think he could have done much for the goal. Destiny Doggy, I thought, was good today. I think he's not been particularly great this season, but maybe he's had a bit of a rest over the international break and everything like that. Did he play for Italy? I'm not sure. But maybe he's had a bit of a rest over this international break. He looked refreshed. One of the comments further up, I'm sorry I've forgotten your name already, but he was saying that when Maddison came off, it allowed Udogie to do what he does best in this system. That's an interesting one to watch going forwards, I think. But I thought he was good again today. I like Destiny. Head screwed on, mature performance. Mickey van der Ven, very good today. Again, just is that kind of natural kind of just that barrier, isn't he? His physicality, his presence, his ability just is a cheat code for us in many respects. Very unfairly booked, but like extremely unfair. He got booked for being fouled, which is, I mean, I guess he stood up and pushed Kudus in the chest, but Kudus had just been kicking him when he was on the ground. So I don't know. I guess maybe by the letter of the law it is a yellow card, and I'm just being sort of overly defensive on his behalf. But it felt felt unfair. Christian Romero, quiet game for him today, and good. Long may that continue. I wouldn't say he did anything wrong today, and I wouldn't equally hold him up and say, wow, it was a brilliant performance. But I think the fact that we kept him so quiet in the second half would hint to the fact that he was good. He was assured in what he was doing. So fair play to him. Pedro Porro, not his best performance today. First half was very ropey. I thought in an attacking sense wasn't particularly good today. Wasn't particularly effective, as we've seen him be. But I think he's generally good value. I think he's a brilliant player. So let's cut him some slack today. James Maddison. Yeah, I mean, I've spoken about him quite a bit today, but I don't think he was bad today, but I don't think he was particularly good. I think a lot of his passing was somewhat wayward. A lot of his passes sort of hit the first man, if you like. There were a couple of decent balls that he played, but for the most part, he felt like a bit of a luxury today, and a luxury we could do without. And it seems like Ange Postecoglou felt the same. Yves Bissouma really grew into the game. Lovely finish for the goal. It's mad that was only his second goal for Spurs. In my head, don't get me wrong, I don't think he's been prolific for us, but in my head, I was like, he must have scored 4 or 5 at least for us. But only a second goal for Spurs. Playing in that sort of role as the anchor, he gave them no time to breathe at all in that second half. Thought he was brilliant, and his partnership with Sarr is joyful at times. I think when those lads like click, it really works. It really works. So brilliant. Dejan Kulusevski, look, I started the pod by just saying his name for literally about 40 seconds to a minute. He's our most important player for my money. Him, Van der Ven, sort of close second. Sonny up there as well as our captain. But it's not doing Sonny a disservice. You can't hide from the fact he's getting older now, and that's just what it is. But Dejan Kulusevski, I said previously, and I will pat myself on the back for it. I don't care. Build the team around him, and it seems that's what we're doing. Tenacious, strong, brave, creative. He's got the lot. He's absolutely got the lot. Lovely finish for the goal today. I want to see more of that. He was more. The thing is, you can tell he's brimming with confidence. Well, he said in an interview not long ago, "I feel like I'm invincible at the moment." And you can just tell he's brimming with confidence because he shapes to shoot and he tries shots so much again now. Remember when he went through that dip in confidence and we were all like, why isn't he shooting? He never shoots anymore. He always looks to like sort of, give the ball to somebody else or something when he's had a perfect opportunity to shoot. He's not doing that anymore. He shapes to shoot and he's having a crack every now and again. And he's brilliant. They're playing in this central role. He's brilliant. He's I will say it again, on form, he's one of the best players in the Premier League at the moment. And it's an absolute joy to watch him play. I think Old Trafford, games like Old Trafford, unbelievable performance. And another one today. What a player. What a player. Honestly, give him a new contract, tie him down, let him know how important he is. because I really think we should. He's young, man. Like, he's only going to get better, honestly. Touch wood, nothing awful happened, no awful injuries or anything, but he's only going to get better. And you can tell he's got that mentality, man. You can tell he does. You could see he did from day one. He wants to win. Like, he's the sort of player that wins you stuff, you know? Players of that mentality where they don't stop. And he never does. He never does. Even in those periods, even in the periods where people were saying he was ineffective, he's never, every time he's in a Tottenham shirt, he never stops running. He never stops running, ever. He's brilliant. He's probably my favourite kind of Spurs player at the moment. I think Sonny's like legendary, right? Sonny's legendary captain. And it's kind of like, I said this of Kane last year, it's kind of like Kane and Son sort of just exist on a layer where they're a given. Like, that like they're there and they're unbelievable. And I mean, Kane isn't anymore, but Sonny is just, he's there. He's ever present. He's our club captain. He is a living legend now. I think he's a Tottenham Hotspur legend already. And you just know that you can put all those platitudes on him. So it's almost like when you're talking about the other players, you're talking about the lesser mortals, if you like, in a way. And I think out of that crop, like, Kulusevski's just one of my favourite player. I do love Sarr as well, though. I've just got such a spot for Sarr, honestly. But Kulusevski's brilliant, man. Sonny, exceptional performance today. Lovely to have him back. Lovely to see him doing what he does best, running at the defence. Customary goal against West Ham as well, giving him a little shush. Love to see him doing that. Made another goal. Made another 2 goals, really. That beautiful pass, I think, to a doggy, wasn't it? Beautiful pass to the outside of his foot. A doggy then passing back to Bissouma, who smacked it into the net. But Sonny fancied it today. He often does against West Ham, doesn't he? And I think he's now, in Premier League goal-scoring terms, he's 1 goal behind Jermaine Defoe and Ian Wright, which is unbelievable. And again, something I've sort of said, and not just me, a few other people have said, is it's funny how Son's brilliance has been kind of put in the shadow by Harry Kane's, where we've maybe not realised and given enough praise to the fact that what Son is actually doing and what he has been doing at Spurs is also truly remarkable. He's had a truly remarkable Premier League career. He's going to go down as one of the greatest goal scorers in Premier League history, probably one of the greatest players in Premier League history. Yeah, just an unbelievable player. And, I think we should probably give him another contract to see out his career at Spurs. But that's a conversation for another day again, I think. Brennan Johnson, his streak was broken today. He looked lively in the first half, bit quieter today, but his confidence was still there. He had that lovely rifled shot from an acute angle in the first half that looked like it was going in, and it would have been his best goal in the Tottenham shirt had it done. But unlucky lad, nothing to get your head down about. Like, keep going, keep firing. Dominic Solanke, look, he didn't score today, and you could tell he was very disappointed to come off. And you might say on paper it was a sort of quieter afternoon for him, but again, he didn't stop running. He didn't stop with that kind of hustle in the final third that he's been doing so well since we signed him. That sort of that level of, I don't know, drive he brings to that kind of that attacking third is brilliant. Closing down, not giving their defense kind of time and space on the ball. He provides a sort of, an essential function for us. And I think he did that with aplomb today. A few subs made today, weren't there, as well? Richarlison didn't really have much time to do anything, but nice to see him back in the fold. Let's hope he can stay fit and be a player of value for us. Archie Gray, again, didn't really have much time on the field. Just nice to see him get in a few minutes. Timo Werner, poor old Timo, mate. He was appalling when he came on, wasn't he? I think you can say he's just got no confidence, and whatever. I'm not going to dwell on it because today's a good day. Pape Matar, game-changing substitution, brilliant performance. What a player. I love the lad, man. Like, to me, it's close between him and Kulusevski for who I really love. playing for Tottenham right now. Like I think he's wonderful. I think keep the faith in that lad. Don't be so eager. Don't be so quick to write him off too often, because I think he's brilliant. I think we really Pape Matar is the type of player for me that, like, that, like, is it Wheaton that plays at Crystal Palace, who plays at Palace, and everyone's like, look, is it Wheaton or Wheater? What's he called? Wheaton? I think it's Wheaton, isn't it? Oh, is it Wheaton? Crystal Palace? I'm looking it up now. Crystal Palace. Wharton. Not Wheaton. Proper David Pleat, that. Wharton at Crystal Palace. Like, everyone loves to go on about, like, look, this player, this is who Tottenham should be signing. We should be signing players like that. I think we got a player who's, they're different types of midfielders, admittedly, but I'm just talking about, like, the level that Pape Matar is at. He's playing at a much higher. With all due respect to Crystal Palace, oh mighty Crystal Palace, all due respect to them. Pape Matar is playing at a much higher level than Wharton is at Palace, and Sarr is. I think you neglect. I think people neglect that. I think people neglect that, like, how much teams want to beat Tottenham. How much we are always a face on the dock for some numerous amounts of these Bobbins clubs as well. Burnley, Southampton, Leicester, all these teams that, like, make us the sort of the sort of center of their ire. Like, it makes them relevant. Oh, we beat Tottenham as well, so we can sing it at the darts now. Tottenham get battered. Fuck off. Like, you're nothing. You're just all irrelevant. But all these teams come to Tottenham and they all want to beat us. And sometimes they do, annoyingly. But I think Sarr is playing for one of the best teams in the country, and he makes us look better when he plays most of the time. Not all of the time, but again, he's learning. He's 22 years old. And I think for any player that can step in at this level and you can see the tangible effect that they have on the team, that's a good player. And that's not a player to write off, especially not at his age. I'll fight you. I'll fight any of you over Pape Matar. Like, just shut up. Give him his dues. He's a brilliant, wonderful young player, and we're very lucky to have him. Well, we're not. We've done. It's a product of good scouting and everything like that. But I'm talking about in a metaphorical sort of sense. Rodrigo Bentancur, I didn't even realise he'd come on. So there you go. But I think that is it for today. Tottenham Hotspur 4, West Ham United 1. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you are watching right now, drop us a little thumbs up, notifications, like and subscribe, all that sort of thing. If you are listening, please do leave a rating, leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, share it wherever you share stuff. I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/RTRpod, where there's a lot more of this sort of chat on there. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Tottenham Hotspur, the mighty Tottenham Hotspur, are victorious in front of the eyes of the nation. The lunchtime Saturday kickoff. I bet the meme accounts were waiting for this one. Tottenham against West Ham, lunchtime kickoff. Bet they couldn't wait to wheel out the same old Spursy shit. But now, content managers, now you're going to have to think of something else funny to say, aren't you? Specsavers, Domino's Pizza, Dulux Paint, all in the mud, along with West Ham. Get in the bin. Shut up. Come on, you Spurs. Get in there.